everyone. So I'm Camille Beaufils. I'm Global Marketing Director for Fever-Tree. And today we're going to talk about mixers, how Fever-Tree premiumized the category, and how we outsmarted the legacy brand. So we're going to take you on a bit of a journey. I'm going to stand here. So Fever-Tree was created by Charles Rolls and Tim Warrilaw with a very simple idea. If 3/4 of your drink is the mixer, shouldn't it be mixed with the best mixer? Think about that for a while. I mean, this was a thought that is a universal truth. And then Tim and Charles, studied, and they just didn't understand why so many people were spending loads of money on premium spirits, which is 1/4 of your drink, and not giving any thought to the rest of the 3/4 of your drinks. So this thinking happened between 2003 and 2005, and what was happening during that time was premiumization was happening, craft was on the rise, gin was booming as we saw it, and yet nothing was happening within the mixer category. It was stagnant, dormant, just relying on the big giants. And mixers at that point were mass-produced with artificial sweeteners, and that left a bit of a cloying taste. I don't know if you remember back then, or if maybe some of you were too young to drink, but it just left you a little bit of a taste in the back of your mouth. And to be honest, that would be then just masking those subtle aromas that so many craft gins and premium gins were spending so much time to put through, because it was just being mixed with something that didn't help the spirits shine. When we did a bit of consumer groups also, there was this one lady that stuck out that kept on saying, in the supermarkets, I see choices and choices and choices. People love to go to see supermarkets to see, some of it is just, you go for your weekly shopping, but you're refreshed when you see new things. And yet, when she went to the mixer aisle, she felt it was boring, stagnant, dormant, nothing was going on. And in her words, she's like, I sleepwalk into my usual choices. So indeed, there was no choice, no quality, and no margins actually for customers, which was a winning point from Tim and Charles when they were starting to set up a new business. So it very quickly became clear for Tim and Charles that there was a huge opportunity there that no one was grappling on. And that was the starting thought in order to premiumize category, and the Fever-Tree business was born. So it was set up in 2005 in order to put taste, quality, and choice back into the mixer category. It was a challenging brand. I mean, challenging Schweppes is no easy feat. And like these other challengers on screens, there's one thing that challengers set out to do is to differentiate, to think of how can they be different and to set themselves apart. And that became an obsession that so many challenger brands know and know so well, and the journey that I'm going to take you on. So Tim and Charles set out at the British Library. They were the first 2 employees and only ones for quite a while. And what they wanted to do is understand how to make mixers better. What ingredients could they do? Where to find those ingredients? How does one ingredient, how can you claim that one ingredient is better or superior than another? And that set us out to the fields. And this is the one and biggest differentiator that we have versus our competition, is the extra lengths that we go to source high-quality ingredients in pursuit of taste. It was really important, and it became what we call ingredient hunting. And ingredient hunting is still something that we do today over and over again. And what that is to source those ingredients, to meet the farmers, to spend time with them, to understand their techniques, and to collaborate with them over the years, over and over again. The farmers that we met still 20 years ago, we're still meeting them today, and we're still continuously understanding how they're farming in order for us to get the better tasting mixers for Fever-Tree. So our quinine, for example, still comes from a fantastic plantation in DRC, and it's one of the best quinines that can be found, and the only type of high-quality quinine that is distilled, for mixers. Our lemon thyme right here comes from Provence, and comes from this tiny family that has 7 generations worth of farmers, and that are the masters of lemon thyme. We were there about 2 weeks ago with 20 tastemakers, continuously showing how we work with that family, they're called the Vidal family, and how they make just the best lemon thyme that hopefully you enjoy in your Mediterranean tonics. And our bitter oranges, they come from the Yucatan, so right here, from the Yucatan region in Mexico. And they're farmed according to the lunar cycle because the Mayan techniques, according to the farmers, give the best, lush, ripest ingredients for those bitter oranges. So each ingredient has an ingredient hunting story. And that helped us through innovation, supply chain, and as you will see, has become a huge marketing tool that we use over and over again. The next thing that we did was carbonation. I've just told you about the lengths that we go to for those ingredients, and we wanted to make sure that we had the best vehicle to really bring out those beautiful ingredients. So we spent a lot of time trying to identify the carbonation, trying to identify how does champagne do it versus other liquids that exist out there, and ultimately, the carbonation that we chose allows us to have the best ingredients that stay with us and that mix the best way with the high-end spirits that consumers are, really investing in. The next thing that we did is we chose to put our drinks in a glass bottle. That might seem normal to you today, but back then it wasn't at all. PET plastic bottles was the norm. And for us, choosing glass bottle was a way to establish ourselves again differently, and two, to demonstrate the premium positioning that was so important to Fever-Tree. And we spent loads of time introducing and educating, this proposition to bars and restaurants for them to understand the asset that it was to have a Fever-Tree glass bottle. How do you make that perfect serve? How do you accompany the Copa balloon glass with a bottle? How do you serve that to consumers, at bars and restaurants so that they can top themselves up? And the bonus for us is that bottle stays on the table. So it's amazing branding for us over the course of, an afternoon or an evening. So we started with an insight. If 3/4 of your drink is the mixer, this became our end line, mixed with the best. And what's amazing is that time and time again, it's a line that people come back and play back to us that really demonstrates that it has generated, a twist, and that people understand the reason for premium mixers. So we also took a different approach in marketing. We just didn't have the budgets that, our competition have, and what usual drink companies do. They spend a lot of money in, marketing, in media. We'll talk about media in a second, and they push those messages out to consumers. We had to do it differently. We had to be clever in a different way. And what we did is we approached tastemakers, opinion leaders. We introduced again Fever-Tree, our proposition. We made them taste it, understand it, hoping that they would become our advocates. And to be honest, the product spoke for itself because very rapidly we had loads of them vouching for Fever-Tree, listing Fever-Tree, showing themselves up with Fever-Tree, and that was the beginning of influencer marketing, if you will, in the noughties for us at Fever-Tree. So then, when we started to think about distribution, again, we were extremely choiceful, thinking about obsession. It was better to start small than big. We chose very specific listings, these 3 ones that Londoners would recognize. It was very choiceful because those who know those restaurants would understand that it was premium restaurants that had quality and that would start demonstrating the value of Fever-Tree. The next best thing that happened is that premium spirits from Diageo, Pernod, Bacardi, and so many others started to want to feature Fever-Tree bottles in their advertising. And that was a godsend, to be honest, because we couldn't imagine that we were the sign of premiumness for them. And the fact that we were also showing up together, the spirit and the mixer, made it more obvious for consumers on how to make delicious mixed drinks. And honestly, the 2 steps that you need to do it, it's really simple. It's 1/4 of spirits, 3/4 of Fever-Tree, and then you garnish beautiful. So then, when we started to expand on our marketing journey, events was obviously the next place to go. And we chose premium events to where we could identify consumer targets that would be ideal for Fever-Tree. When you go into those sponsorships, usually it's just a logo, a stand, and you talk about our product. The magic of Fever Tree is that we had the perfect fit and usage for that product. We chose those events that had high dwell time, where people were very happy to have a drink, waiting around for the next thing to happen, and it was the perfect opportunity for us to sample products, get new liquids, we call it liquid on lips, get people to, to tell us about like what other flavors are they interested in it, and that gave us ideas for innovation to come through. What started with small events became the Queen's Championship right before COVID, and today we're still very much activating at the likes of Ascot, Oval, and all around the world in the different markets that we are in like-minded high dwell time events. So the UK saw some great momentum, and we quickly wanted to go internationally to capitalize on that gin boom that was happening across a few markets. A few of those would have been Spain, Belgium, Denmark. But again, we wanted to do it differently. Usually you'd go with your biggest distributor in that market who obviously know it so well, who have so many people in the field sales team. But we thought we wanted to go small, curated, find those reps that continuously hang out with the tastemakers that are going to be able to talk about Fever Tree in a different way. So in Spain, for example, we partnered with a kitchen equipment company. To be honest, I'd never heard of that being a really strong partner, but it was an amazing one for us because that rep specifically ended up hanging out with all of the top chefs where he supplied, the high kitchen equipment at night, and at that point, would bring Fever Tree. And no wonder that Ferran Adrià, I don't know if a few of you guys know him, he used to be a super famous chef, still is, but his restaurant was El Bulli in Spain. So he got a hold of our bottle and liked it so much he started experimenting with it. It ended up doing an amazing recipe called the Fever Tree, Sopa de Fever Tree, and that featured on his menu. And that was such an amazing coup for Fever Tree because, we could speak about Ferran Adrià, he was open about it, and the fact that someone like him had put Fever Tree on the menu was, such a vouch of approval. So those type of activities worked really well in markets where gin was booming. But we started realizing that all markets are not made the same, and that gin boom was having, different momentums in different markets. In the US, for example, we found that gin was okay, it was growing, but from a pretty low base, but tequila was on the rise. And tequila has had a massive expansion, first in the US and slowly globally. So again, with the small, nimble approach that we had, we were very close to people in the restaurants, in the bartender industry. They started telling us, there's something else that is happening. Look out for the Paloma. The Paloma is going to be the next big drink. And what we did is we capitalized on that and innovated so quickly in a record time and came up with pink sparkling grapefruit. And that drink is the best mixer that you can pair with tequila. And that was a way for us to demonstrate that, again, with our challenger mindset and our nimble approach, we can respond to trends. And this was the first time, actually, that we were responding to a trend outside of gin and showed that we could actually amplify our portfolio and grow beyond gin and tonics. So international growth happened. We started identifying our playbook. Our playbook was identifying spirit trends, and when they were really ripe with their momentum, Fever Tree would be able to jump on that bandwagon and make use of their tailwind, because we've always had lean budgets. So anyone that tells that you cannot do anything with lean budgets, you can. You just need to choose your time, rightfully, so that that lean budget has the best kind of impact. So we learned that, but then, we were showing up like this. So it was gin and tonic and bottle. And then all of a sudden, we needed to show up in a different way and capitalize on different drinks. So we started, for example, doing ginger beer, Moscow mules with ginger beer, and we grew really well in the markets such as France and Italy. Next one is the aperitivo was on the rise with Aperol Spritz. So in Germany, we came up with wild berry aperitivo. In Australia, gin and tonic was quite strong, but there was an equally strong serve that was called the whiskey and dry with ginger ale, and we grew the Australian market that way. And finally, the Paloma on the far end, which was a huge unlock for the US. So growth was happening. We're really excited. We're growing exponentially. But as I was saying, we were very much anchored in a gin and tonic culture. And we needed to confront the fact that people knew us through tonics and gin and tonics. So there was a bit of a shift that Fever Tree business had to do. And we understood that we needed to be known not only as a gin and tonic or tonic brand, but as a mixer brand. And that, from a marketing perspective, was a bit of a sidestep, a great sidestep. But from an assets perspective, we need to be in different glassware. So to date, we had been so married to the Copa balloon glasses that the gin and tonic comes in, and we need to start to feature in, in spirits glasses, in tumblers, in highballs, in copper mugs for the mules. So big change as far as how we showed up from a marketing perspective. Second thing is our liquid used to be clear because tonic tends to be clear. And I mean, we've all seen, again, the huge rise and popularity of Aperol Spritz. And not only it's the taste, the moments, but the fact that the color, the drink is so colorful and Instagrammable, gave us ideas of different innovations that we could play to beautiful tasting liquids, but that demonstrated how we can tap into that aperitivo moment. Third thing was looking at gin and tonics and the events, and broadening our spectrum as far as looking into different events that would not only be about gin and tonic. Very quickly, what we did from a media perspective is we realized that, again, we didn't have the budget to do TVs. So we started to look for high dwell time media channels where we could tell our brand story. And those was, for example, train cross tracks or podcast reads, or radio with commentators, and using that additional time in order to hear more about our ingredient stories and connect to why the brand is premium and better tasting. So, in a nutshell, what have we done? Through our challenger mindset, we disrupted the category. First thing, by being everything that our competition was not. In a glass bottle, premium liquids, beautiful ingredients, and no artificial sweeteners. Second, we were amazing storytellers. We leveraged our ingredient hunting, it started from innovation, but we made that a brand, a marketing tool, and we used advocates, like-minded people, to be our loudspeakers. Third, we looked at distribution in a very different way. We didn't chase volume, we chased influence, and we were very choiceful about the different top-tier venues, bartenders, liquor stores, or retailers that we wanted to work with. All of those needed to be aspirational, because then that unlocked the volume, and the volume came. And finally, by really understanding local market trends, spirit dynamics, different events, we were able to grow exponentially globally, and the results are here today. So where are we today? We are very proud to be the premium global mixer. We're a global trusted brand, and we're distributed in 95 countries. In the UK, we are #1 and continue to retain our #1 market leader position. In the US, we are leading in tonic and ginger beer, growing the category, and that's amazing because it's our largest region today. And we're growing our premium portfolios through mixers, cocktails, and softs. We celebrated our 20th anniversary 20th anniversary this year, and there is so much more that we have to go after. Thank you.
Thank you. There we go. Thank you so much, Camille. Now, we haven't had any questions from the floor. Any questions? Any questions? You've got 30 seconds. I've got one question for you. I think I probably know the answer to this because you're so pure about what your proposition is at Fever Tree, but yeah. Has there been much debate as to whether or not you should also expand into the soft drink market with the same products, given lots of young people who are drinking a lot less, etc. Is that ever something that you've considered doing?
No, we think about this constantly, and we've started expanding into softs. In the UK, you can find us in softs in different formats, and that is definitely an area of interest for Fever-Tree. So we're looking at it, definitely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Another round of applause, please, for the wonderful Camille.